Anglo Platinum joint venture operations contribute 30% to our production profile on an annual basis. And going forward into the future, I expect that that production profile will grow to as much as 1 million ounces a year, and we're going to do that through increased levels of participation with appropriate partners within the industry, but also to make sure that our existing partners that we actually have the ability to sustain current levels and grow within the properties that they have within Anglo Platinum. I do believe that the platinum industry is ripe for consolidated interests, and I am absolutely certain that there are significantly greater opportunities that we have for better exploitation of the platinum resource both on the eastern and western limb of the Bushveld complex.
What are these opportunities that you see currently?
It's important to recognize that in our existing joint venture operations, there were some transactions that we've done to secure our license to operate and to secure our new order mining rights. But there are also those that we've engaged in to optimally extract the platinum resources across farm boundaries with our partners. That's a key driver going forward into the future, where we can use infrastructure, we can share services in terms of supply chain, medical and training with our partners to reduce the costs of production and make sure that we have sustainable operations going forward into the future. The opportunities exist both on the eastern and western limb. On the eastern limb, we've got a number of properties that are ripe for exploitation, and we are looking at how best we can maximize the value out of that. On the western limb, I think the most significant partnership that we have is with Bafokeng Rasamoni, for which we have a 33% share at an operating level, and for which we contribute a significant level of capital to its current expansion plans. The other opportunities that we have to exploit on the western side is where we put our infrastructure into pooling and sharing agreements that we actually have with Aquarius into a vehicle that allows for effective exploitation of the ore body, something that we couldn't do with our infrastructure on our own, given the remoteness and costs of production, but which we believe our partners could effectively exploit because of the synergy that they have with existing infrastructure. We have Bokoni, which is an operation that is a significant piece of real estate on the eastern limb. It has a number of projects within its property that we believe will increase its production by 100% over the next 3 years. There's Modikwa and Modikwa Deeps, which will ensure a sustainable level of production for that mine over the next 2 decades. And that's something we are in final feasibility studies with now. We're looking at how best we can contribute additional life of mine value to Mototolo, which is a partnership that we have with Xstrata. In respect of Pandora, which is a joint venture that we have on the western limb, we are talking to our partners about consolidation, and with Aquarius, which is slightly to the west of Pandora, we are looking at how best we can optimize our pooling and sharing agreements that we have. Bafokeng Rasamoni, we have spoken about earlier. We believe that that's the one operation that has significant growth potential, and we are making higher levels of investment into that partnership to bring the new stale drift shaft into production and to optimize the Merensky and UG2 extraction.
We know that nature put down ore bodies in a way that they're not being mined, and the main reason for that is that the ownership is determined on surface. How can you cooperate more and make sure that national patrimony is served to a greater extent?
That's been the history of mining in South Africa across almost all commodities, that mining stops at farm boundaries. But Anglo Platinum and Anglo American, to its credit, have over the last decade been trying to break down those farm boundaries and work across them through partnerships. And the contribution of those partnerships to value within Anglo Platinum has been significant. In 2010, the partnerships contributed 32% of production, close on to 20% of operating profit, and it contributes significantly to production and cost efficiencies within the organization as well. The strategy that we are looking at going forward is to optimize extraction across farm boundaries by utilizing the benefits of infrastructure services that our partners actually have. So our intent is, while farm boundaries will always be a significant aspect of the way mining rights are issued, the way we want to approach it is through partnerships with key players within the industry to ensure optimal extraction of the ore body. That in itself will contribute to employment growth. It will contribute to a future sustainability in the industry, and most importantly, of course, the fiscal will benefit significantly from this activity as well.
And how is the relationship managed between the full ownership, 100% owned mines by Anglo Platinum, and the partly owned mines within the joint ventures?
The managed operations are easier in that we have absolute control over them, so it makes a lot easier for planning and for making sure that we keep pace with the changes that are happening. In terms of our partnerships, one has to recognize that although we have an interest in it, we're not the operators on the ground. I'm pleased to say that under my watch, what I've sensed is an increasing level of engagement with our partners. And in fact, the one singular value that we all share is to be able to optimally extract value for the shareholders across farm boundaries so that there's a mutual win-win.
How much capital is going to be invested in these joint venture operations in 2011?
Anglo Platinum's capital spend for 2011 is just on 7.5 billion rand. And if one takes into account the investment that we are making in Bafokeng, Rasimoni, the share of capital that's going into the joint venture operations is just under 1.5 billion rand for 2011. Over the next decade, we expect that we're going to make significant investments in our joint venture operations to ensure that our production profiles are maintained, and in certain instances to grow our production profile through new projects that we intend to bring in. And that could amount to close on to 1.5 billion rand over the next decade.
And what are the new projects that you intend to bring in?
In the first instance, we're looking at consolidation of the Eastern Limb. We've got a number of properties on the Eastern Limb that is within our mineral rights portfolio and which we intend bringing in over the next few years. I can just highlight De Brochen as one, Twickenham as the other, and right now we're going through feasibility studies and production profiles to see how best that can be managed within our capital profile spend.
How could this cooperation and partnership be best manifested?
Well, it's quite clear that what we have set as our objective is, as far as is reasonably practical, to consolidate the mining activities on the Eastern Limb. to set ourselves up for growth on the Eastern Limb, because the Eastern Limb has not had the level of focus and investment as the Western Limb has had over the years. But most importantly, to collaborate with our partners in growing the operations that we have shares in, so that there's a mutual benefit of value for both parties. So if I had to summarize our vision going forward into the future, it is success through partnerships.